The views or opinions expressed on Ann Arbor Inclusive do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the City of Ann Arbor and the Commission on Disability Issues. For more information about the Ann Arbor Commission on Disability Issues, please visit a2gov.org/disability resources.
Hello, thank you for joining us on Ann Arbor Inclusive. I'm your host, Tom Hoatland. March is Brain Injury Awareness Month, so it seems fitting that we highlight a nonprofit that works tirelessly so that people who are brain injured can lead full and meaningful lives. The Brain Injury Association of Michigan, otherwise known as BIAMI, is one of the longest established, largest, and most productive of the Brain Injury Association of America's state affiliates. From supporting its many chapters and support groups statewide and responding to thousands of calls annually through their hotline, to aggressive advocacy for policies and legislation in Lansing, and hosting major events including their two-day annual Brain Injury Conference, which is the largest of its kind in the nation. This organization is truly making an impact on the lives of people with brain injuries and their families. Before we meet our guests, let's take a look at some video footage that they've brought with them.
Photo montage showing people at Comerica Park, a little girl with a bike helmet on, people at a business meeting, and people looking at a display of a number of crafted art masks in a large hallway. The organization logo reading Brain Injury Association of Michigan.
The chapters, for me, being around other survivors and sharing
A middle-aged gentleman in a wheelchair.
information and sharing stories is just so incredibly important because it lets you know that you're not alone. And for me, when I was first injured, that was one of the things that sent me into a very, very deep depression, is the feeling of being alone, being by myself. Why did this have to happen to me? And just feeling sorry for myself and not wanting to participate very much in life. And I call it the sunken place. And it's really no place to be. It's a very lonely, very scary place to be. And especially when you feel like you're by yourself. And so meeting with the chapter and talking with other people and learning that some other people have experienced some of the same feelings and what they did to come out of it, and it just makes you feel like you're not in this thing by yourself, and that there are resources and things out here that you might not know about or learn about if it weren't for, this group, that focuses on brain injury. I'm just really glad that the chapter, I forget what survivor groups are there, and this conference and all of the other stuff that's going on. It's just really important. It's needed, and I know I'm glad that it exists.
The organization logo, Brain Injury Association of Michigan. 1-800-444-6443.
Let me welcome two women that I call my colleagues, my friends, and my partners. Welcome Nicole Shotwell and Diane Dugan. First, before we get started, I'd like you to tell folks what you do, what your role is independently at the Brain Injury Association.
I'm Nicole Shotwell. I am the Vice President of Programs and Operations.
Okay.
And I'm Diane Dugan, and I am the Program Outreach Coordinator at the Brain
Great.
Injury Association.
Great. So in your own words, because you're the experts at this, who is BIAMI? Who is the Brain Injury Association of Michigan?
The Brain Injury Association of Michigan is made up and comprised of all the survivors in the community, all the 200,000 people living in Michigan with a brain injury, their family members, and all of our corporate sponsors, all of our provider network that we have, legislators. We're all part of the Brain Injury Association of Michigan.
Okay. I remember I read that there's only 10 staff members. You guys get a lot done in a small nonprofit.
We do. We like to
do.
say that we
Yeah.
punch above our weight class, so
There
to
you
speak.
go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a real team effort there.
Yeah.
And
I-
there's things going on all the time. You know, it's a very productive and busy office.
Okay. So also again, in maybe layman's terms, what is a brain injury? I think I hear several different terms. I hear brain injury, I hear traumatic brain injury, I hear acquired. Can you give us the definitions and what those differences are? Or if there is a difference?
Sure. It is confusing. All brain injuries are acquired brain injuries. What distinguishes them from a developmental disability is something that happens when you are in utero. Any type of brain injury that you occur after birth is considered an acquired brain injury. Under that umbrella is another subcategory called traumatic brain injury. So acquired brain injuries can include things like concussion, stroke, slips and falls, but then there's another more traumatic side of it, which is where the TBI part comes in.
Okay, and the TBI would be, you would use that if someone had a catastrophic injury such as a car accident?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. And basically, out of our state of Michigan or in society, who is most likely to acquire a traumatic brain injury?
Well, probably the most vulnerable groups are young children and the senior population, because falls are the #1 cause of brain injury. And, you know, with little kids, when they're learning to walk, they stumble, they fall, they hit their head. And with seniors, that population, of course,
Right.
you know, they're not as steady on their feet. They fall in their own homes, they fall walking to their car on the sidewalk. So those are, I think, the two most vulnerable populations for brain injury.
Okay. Do you have figures in Michigan, how many people live with a brain injury and some stats?
Yes, we're about 58,000 people sustain a brain injury each year here in Michigan. Right now we have about 98,000 people who live with a disability that's caused by a brain injury. And out of the 58,000 folks who sustain brain injury, about 30% are from auto accidents,
Okay.
car crashes. Yeah.
Great. So let's talk about programs. I know you guys have pillars, and I'd like to know about those pillars. Are your pillars basically related to the programs you have?
The pillars are what support all of our mission.
Okay.
So our mission is to improve and enhance the lives of people with brain injury and their families. And we do that through advocacy, awareness, education,
Research. Yes.
support, and prevention.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about some of them? Like, tell me about advocacy. What are you working on right now? I think I know what the hot button is.
Yeah. So right now we're spending a lot of time in Lansing as auto no fault has become a big, huge issue in the state of Michigan.
Right.
People feel like they're paying too darn much for their auto insurance, but at the same time, we need to be able to preserve the quality of care that only the state of Michigan has.
Yep.
So we want to make sure that if you are one of the 30% of people who sustain a brain injury through an auto accident, we want to make sure that you are fully rehabilitated to the best of your ability.
Because you hear stories about people who acquire a traumatic brain injury or a spinal cord injury in a different state than Michigan, and it's not good what happens. And I think some of the proponents of getting rid of no fault would change their mind if they had someone in their family, a loved one, that sustained a traumatic brain injury in an auto accident. And 30% is a huge number these days.
It is.
And
yes.
while auto no fault is the hot topic right now, we really have a lot of different advocacy efforts. One of the things that we are trying to do is really work with our partner organizations, other disability organizations like the Disability Networks or the ARC of Michigan, the Epilepsy Foundation, just to name a few. But we're really working together to empower the people that we all serve to become more active as self-advocates.
Okay.
So one way that we did that last March, as a matter of fact, is through what we called Civic Engagement Day. And we worked with the Democratic Caucus in Lansing and put on a program where we brought together over 30 advocacy organizations from both the disability side as well as the healthcare side to bring their folks together and learn about, things that are sometimes seeming mysterious to folks who aren't used to advocating for themselves. So how do I talk to my legislator? How do I find out who my legislator is? Because not everybody knows. How do I find them? How do I reach out to them? And what do I say? And sort of demystifying that whole entire process. So we spent a whole day doing that last March, and then have since continued with empowering folks throughout the year with a variety of different programs.
I've done the legislative days, and both in Washington and in Lansing, and it's intimidating. It's to meet your representatives, but it's wonderful to actually have them face to face, right in front of you. Diane, how about awareness?
Well, we do a lot of educational events, for example, throughout the year.
Okay.
And you had mentioned our conference that we have each year in September.
Yeah.
That is a huge way that we try to bring awareness of brain injury. We have smaller, more specialized conferences about awareness. Sometimes we're asked by other organizations to come and speak to them about brain injury and what it is.
Yeah.
So we're getting more and more, I guess, interest from the community about brain injury. So we do a lot of educational events in that regard.
Okay.
The one event we did last October, right before the election, and this kind of goes along with what Nicole was saying about advocacy as well. We had the first of its kind that we know of, at least here in Southeast Michigan. We had a forum, and the forum was focused on disabilities.
Okay.
People with disabilities, what issues do they face? And we held it in Detroit, and we invited all the candidates who were running for office.
Yeah.
We ended up having about 15 candidates who showed up. But again, it was an opportunity for not only people with brain injury, but other disabilities to educate our candidates and bring about more awareness to them about different disabilities and injuries like brain injury.
Okay. I'm really interested in prevention and your efforts in prevention. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. The only cure for brain injury is prevention.
Right.
And it sounds so simple, but how do you prevent it, right? We're not going to stop driving cars. We're not going to stop, riding bicycles, right? We're not going to stop doing those things just because we're afraid of getting a brain injury.
Right.
So one of the things that we do on the prevention side is we work with one of our partners, the Sinus Dramus law firm,
Okay.
and we do a bicycle helmet fitting in 3 different locations throughout the
Wow.
throughout the state.
Yeah.
We do it in Traverse City, Grand Rapids, and Lansing. And at each different event, we've fitted over 500 helmets
Wow.
for children. And it's not just giving away the helmet, but it's making sure that they fit properly.
Yeah.
That's good. That's the real key.
Yeah. I mean, you're wearing a helmet for safety, and I've seen them not put on right, and
Yeah.
they come right off when someone falls. So that's important.
Yeah, like, borrowing your older brother's or your younger sister's
Right.
helmet just for the sake of wearing a helmet isn't really giving you that layer of safety that you need to have
Right,
to
yeah.
help protect your head. We tell kids who are most likely to not wear a helmet, which shouldn't be a surprise to us,
Right.
as middle school age kids.
Yeah.
And what we talk to them about is, you put an OtterBox or a big protecting thing on your phone.
Right.
You put your computer in a case when you're using it. If you're willing to protect those physical computers,
Right.
so to speak, why aren't you willing
Protecting
to
your head.
protect your personal
Yeah.
computer,
That's
right?
a
Why
great
aren't you willing to
comparison.
protect your brain? And sometimes that really gets kids thinking a little bit.
Yeah.
So
And educating the parents. It's important for them to wear helmets when they bicycle with their kids.
Yeah.
How many times do you see a family, they're all riding bicycles and the kids may have helmets on, but the parents don't. Or maybe one child has a helmet and the rest don't.
Right.
I mean,
How'd
they're
you
the
make
role
that
models,
choice?
right?
Yeah.
So trying
Right.
to convince parents as well.
And you're right. We do see that.
Yeah.
Well, and there's research that supports that kids who wear their helmets are more likely to have parents who wear their helmets.
Yeah.
So being a good role model, parents, when you are out there, that's going to be the most important thing you can do.
Right. Yeah. That's great. So who are your partners? I know you mentioned the Disability Network of Michigan. And I know that that's the state affiliation for Centers for Independent Living, right? So can you say something about that?
Well, that's just one of many partners
Okay.
that we work with. Other partners, advocacy partners, people or other organizations that work with people with disabilities, such as the ARC. We've worked closely with them.
Okay. In Brighton?
Yes, but statewide as well.
Got you.
NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness, the Mental Health Authority in Detroit, or Wayne County, I should say, the Epilepsy Organization. It just goes on, and we're doing more outreach, and we're trying to develop those kind of partnerships on a daily basis. In
That's
addition
how
to
you guys
that,
are able to grow.
yes, yes. And we have our other partners, like Nicole had mentioned, Sinus Dramus is one of our partners. We have numerous rehabilitation organizations here in Michigan that we work with. So many that we can't name them all.
Right. Yeah.
But we have close working relationships with them, other nonprofits, and we want to continue those partnerships and
Yeah.
make new ones as
Yeah.
well.
We'd like to say we get by with a little help from our friends.
Yeah.
And I think it's a nonprofit or a social impact organization. I mean, we're smart to do that. I mean, that's the best way to do it. So, and our friends include other nonprofits. You know, in the corporate world, who does that? You
Right,
know,
right.
I don't see automakers partnering with one another to serve the people and to help me have a better car.
Right.
But we're going to work with our friends, as an example, at the Epilepsy Foundation to make sure that the folks that we serve who overlap
Yeah.
Right.
are getting the most and the best services and quality services that they possibly can.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of my favorite things that I do know about about Miami and about you folks is your unmasking project. And I want to talk about that in a moment, but let's show some footage that you guys brought first.
Sure.
Sure.
A crafted mask held by a woman looks at her own face.
My mask represents how I feel after the assault. The tears show the loss of the life I had prior to the assault. I use the eyelashes and the lipstick to show that I'm still a person, even though I have a brain injury.
Margaret Getty.
I was working at basically an inpatient unit at a prison, and I was pushed by an inmate and then kicked. And I was kicked in multiple places, including my head. several times. I try to make sure that it gets better every day and try to find things to do. Was used to being fairly active, fairly busy. What would I say to a person who was listening to this that hadn't gotten treatment or had a brain injury? It is as much as possible to regain as much control of your life as you can and to do as many things as you can and to have as much fun as you can.
A crafted mask held by a man looks at his own face.
Of my thoughts and disarray of my brain. Bandages on my lips are how I felt of silence since my accident. The day of my accident, I was just visiting my son, realized I was late, took off, went to work, and I crashed.
Sean Schwab.
I was in the hospital for 3 to 6 months. The biggest part it affected my life was because my son was only 1.5 when I had the accident. So I missed the majority of him growing up, which that can never be replaced back. For me, my biggest thing was I got involved in church. I kept it in church. And I loved how, because since my injury, all these therapists and doctors will go, put God in the box. Because they say you can't be able to recover. And I haven't given up. I'm still moving forward.
The organization logo, Brain Injury Association of Michigan.
I think this is so unique and so poignant when you look at these. I see that you brought some masks. Can you tell us about the program and maybe even show us the 2 that you brought, how those fit in?
Of course. Well, the program started probably about 4 years ago, and it was started in North Carolina. The Brain Injury Association of North Carolina partnered with a rehab program there, and they came up with this whole idea of unmasking, and they wanted other affiliates, state affiliates, to start this program. So we started it about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, and right now we have over 300 masks.
Wow.
Those are 300 brain injury survivors who made these masks, and it's a powerful way to give a voice to our brain injury survivors. It's an opportunity for them to tell their story in a unique way.
Yeah.
Some people can't talk about it. They don't have the right words, but you put a mask in front of them and they can show on the mask what it means to have that brain injury.
Okay.
So this mask, for example, was shown in the video.
Sean.
Yep. Who's actually an Ann Arbor resident.
Okay.
And so we had him make the mask along with Margaret.
Yep.
And I'll let Nicole talk about the next phase of this. It's called 2.0, unmasking. But again, it's talking about awareness and education. This is another tool that we use to show people, what is it like to have a brain injury and what it means to people.
To themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. How about this mask?
This mask was
Margaret.
also on the film. It's from Margaret, and Margaret is also an Ann Arbor resident. Now, when you see the masks on display, all you see is their first name, last initial, where they're from, the nature of their brain injury, and then they'll give an explanation of the mask.
Okay.
So for Margaret's, for example, it says, "The tears show the loss of my life as it was prior to my assault. I used eyelashes and lipstick to show that I'm still a normal person, even though I have a brain injury." So it's, when you read those masks and you see them on display, whether it's at the state capitol in Lansing or whether it's at our annual fall conference, you see this wall of masks. And one of the questions that people would have would be, I want to know more. Like, tell me about the person behind the mask. Like, what's their real story? Mm-hmm. So what we did is we created a program called Unmasking Brain Injury 2.0, the next version, right?
Right.
So if you notice on this mask, as well as on Sean's mask, there's a QR code.
Yep.
We worked with a videographer and collected 12 videos of 12 different survivors really telling the story behind the mask.
Wow.
So it's sort of like, remember MTV used to have behind the scenes?
Yeah.
Or was it VH1? One of them did.
Right.
And this is behind the mask. It
Wow.
tells you about the person in their own words, how they are, what more details about their survivors. And that's what we saw just now,
Yeah.
were 2 of those Unmasking 2.0 videos.
What about pushback? Someone who doesn't want to do it, doesn't know how, and then you finally get them to do it. I'm sure you face that.
That has happened a few times, not as many as you would think.
Okay.
I have to say, every time we took this project to different groups of brain injury survivors, there was some hesitation. But once they saw other people just start, thinking and drawing and putting words down, it was a real contagious. They all just got into it. We had a couple of people who didn't want to make the mask because of all the anger that they felt about their injury.
Yeah.
And we encouraged them, that's what your mask should be about then.
Yeah.
You need to let people know about that anger.
Right.
And it was a way for him to get it out in a productive way.
Yeah.
And it was very therapeutic for him.
Yeah. During Brain Injury Awareness Month, is there somewhere where the public can see this display of masks?
Absolutely. We're really proud to be partnering with the Novi Civic Center, where the masks will be on display the 2nd week of March.
Okay.
We'll be partnering with the Rehabilitation Institute of Michigan in Detroit, and the masks will be on display there the 3rd week. And then we're partnering with St. Joseph Mercy Hospital right here in Ann Arbor, where the masks will be on display the 4th week of March.
Wow, that's great. That's a lot of choices.
Yes.
Yeah, so get out and see them.
I really
Yes.
encourage people to go see
Absolutely.
it because it's really, really thought-provoking, and it's an important display to see.
Brain injury is a hidden disability like many, many other ones, and to be able to get a glimpse of what's behind the masks and what's behind that disability is really, really poignant. So I would encourage everyone to come.
Yeah, I agree. I have to say that when I went to last year's annual conference and saw an entire wall of these masks displayed, I saw so many different emotions. I saw beauty, I saw anger, and transformation, and it was really amazing. I continue to be impressed with Miami and the many ways they are enhancing the lives of people who are brain injured in our state. My thanks to Nicole and Diane for spending time with us during Brain Injury Awareness Month. If you would like to contact Miami, please visit www.miami.org. I'm Tom Hoatland, and on behalf of the Ann Arbor Commission on Disability Issues, we thank you for tuning in. We hope to see you next month on Ann Arbor Inclusive. Thanks.